distinguished guests on the dais, Honorable Minister, ladies and gentlemen, after that very appropriate opening to our session, let me go straight to this one, which is a special plenary on connectivity. And I'm very pleased that the Honorable Minister will speak on something which evokes distance, which this continent and this region has lots of, but more importantly, reach. And connectivity is basically the way not only to prosperity, speaking economically, but prosperity in all terms. And I was very pleased that this morning our keynote speakers emphasized people-to-people connectivity. And that is why, though throughout these 2 days we will talk about connectivity, physical connectivity, digital connectivity, what I would like to emphasize is that building roads, building the air connectivity, building maritime connectivity, important as they are just necessary but not sufficient conditions for growth. What we need is to connect, is to transform these connectivities, roads, airways, seaways, into transport corridors. And beyond, transport corridors ultimately become economic corridors, which is basically which brings people together, which brings prosperity, which enables development in the truest sense of the word. So this session today, and I have the great pleasure of having an extremely competent and very wide experienced panel to talk about these issues of mega corridors. India is deeply involved in international corridors, transport development, both domestically and internationally, both going east and going west. And ultimately, if the regional integration dreams that we all subscribe to it to come to pass, is the connectivity, the corridors which will connect both the region and then beyond the region. So we will talk about connecting India, within India, and then within the region. And we'll talk about the ASEAN corridors that the Honorable Minister Gadkari had mentioned, Excellency Mr. Singh had mentioned. But we will also talk not only about the trilateral highway, the Kala-Nad multimodal, but also many of the projects, many of the concepts which are on the table, and you have heard the ministers give a very wide menu of actions which are implemented, some being implemented, and some being planned. And the session will therefore highlight the importance of international corridors, with India being just one of the partners. And this is why it is so critically important, and we are so pleased that all our member countries from various ASEAN countries are here today, because connectivity is a two-way street. And connectivity within the region, and then spreading beyond the region, and then a global connectivity is ultimately what we're aiming for. We in South Asia are acutely aware that we have a long way to go in terms of intra-regional trade. We recognize and we appreciate that East Asia, Southeast Asia, ASEAN have in that sense done much better. In South Asia, the intra-regional trade is only 5% of our total trade, compared to about 50% for East Asia. And that's something we aspire to. And that's something that I think you have heard our ministers, you'll be hearing many other speakers, show India's great commitment to make this happen. But we also recognize that this is not going to be easy. This requires political commitment, it requires technical commitment, it requires financing. But what I personally, having been involved in this field for the last 3 decades, I'm very encouraged about that there is a convergence at the political level, at the bureaucratic level, but even more importantly, at the private sector level, civil society, all communities coming together, not only in India, but in South Asia, not only in South Asia, but South Asia and Southeast Asia and East Asia. And together, we can therefore dream of the distances being breached by the reach.